This is Grace Notes. I'm Alan Button, and pleased to have as my guest today Dr. William Johnstone, who goes by Skip. First, let me say welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor.
We learned about Skip because he's involved, was the founder and continues as president of a program that has made a huge difference in the lives of a lot of women. And there's a lot we could say about Skip in advance. Maybe I'll try to summarize just briefly, and Skip, you can correct me if I get any of this wrong, but Skip was born in Wilson, North Carolina, grew up in Sanford, ended up going to college at Duke, and eventually made his way to the medical school at ECU, and has practiced for a good many years in Wilmington, but has strong connections in Moore County, North Carolina as well. Did I get that more or less right, Skip?
That's exactly right.
We want to jump, if we could, Skip, right to the organization called TIDES that you founded, TIDES. Tell us what it is and how it got started.
TIDES is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that got started officially in 2018, but there were several years prior to that was spent organizing and getting funding, which was a big hurdle.
And tell you what, to provide some context for our listeners, I neglected to say that your specialty is OBGYN, and you're a pelvic floor surgery specialist. Did I get that right?
That's correct. That's correct. That was the reason I was in Wilmington at the time. I was in private practice in Moore County at Pioneer Surgical for 20 years, but because of doing a fair amount of operations on pelvic reconstruction, I got good at it. And recognized and was hired into academic medicine in 2012.
And TIDES is an outgrowth of what you were seeing in a number of your patients, as I understand it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the problem with addiction and specifically opioid use disorder was as prevalent and as big a problem as it was. But Wilmington, unfortunately, was designated the number one city in the country for opioid use disorder, and so it spilled over into the pregnant population that I was dealing with on a daily basis. And unfortunately, my education lacked when it came to addiction. So tragedies were happening in front of our eyes, and I knew something had to be done. So I began a mission of self-education with help from others, and began to search for programs that took care of these women that I could emulate. And fortunately for me, there's a top center at UNC called Horizons that's been doing this work for decades, 33 years now. That the TIDES actually is I use the same structure, the same components of the treatment program that they have. I just don't have as great of expense as they have, because we use other organizations and nonprofits to pull together into a community collaborative comprehensive consortium of agencies that deliver the features of the program on a rotating basis, and we navigate our patients through this. I like to use the hub and spoke diagram of the organization, so we navigate our patients through that.
Give us that descriptor again. I think that's a great description of how you operate.
Comprehensive collaborative community consortium.
Got it. Okay, good. Go ahead.
It's a mouthful, but it is a powerful descriptive term of the organization. And over the life of the organization, thus far, we're in our fourth year, 94% of our graduates have custody of their children, which before, I'm not going to say was absolutely zero, but it was probably a single-digit number.
A huge difference. That's fabulous.
Yeah, we're very proud of that fact.
We'll circle back here shortly, Skip, to hear some more specifics, but I want to take a little break here to transition to this first song you've selected. I know music has been a part of your life, and this first song, tell us about it. A Horse with No Name by America. Why that song?
I grew up in the 60s and 70s. The 70s music was a lot of Fender Stratocasters, Gibsons, wailing out and banging out electric guitars, and I loved it.
So say you sound like you know something about guitars.
Well, if you walked into my music room, you'd see a number of guitar cases in there, all full. But yeah, I'm a closet guitar player. I sound really good to myself. And,
in fact, speaking of music, I have it on good authority that you actually applied to the Berklee School of Music and were invited to audition.
I was. I don't know if they were listening to the tapes that day or not. They decided that, but fortunately for the music world, I was accepted at Duke, and so I didn't go to Boston to audition. But yeah, it was music has been a huge part of my life, and America, when they came out with this song, it was a fresh sound to me. You know, I like the acoustics. I like electric guitars too, but it was just different. And the young guys, the three guys that were in the band were Air Force brats growing up in England, and they got bored and they formed a band, and they were my age, and so that's what even impressed me even more. But the lyrics, I still don't understand what they mean, but the music is and the sound of the guitars is just it's just fresh, and it reached me. It's a very easy song to play on a guitar, even I can play it. And I don't even try to put the lyrics to it because I'd mess those up. But it has a great sound, and I got to see America last August in Wilmington, and it just kind of capped it all off.
Very good. Now, speaking of the lyrics and not understanding them, I'm with you on that. It's kind of like poetry. You bring to it what you want. There's a transcendent quality about it,
and that's the beauty. Everybody can take away their message. And I'm sure it's buried in there. I just haven't figured that out.
Let's hear it. A Horse with No Name by America.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were
That was A Horse with No Name by America. If you're just joining us, our guest today is Dr. William Johnstone, Skip Johnstone. Skip is the founder and president of an organization called Tides, whose focus is on opioid addiction recovery efforts with respect to pregnant women. That was a little bit awkward, I guess, Skip. For my benefit and the benefit of our listeners, give us the short version of how you describe what Tides does.
We're a comprehensive program for recovery. We're not a 28-day program or a 6-month program. We are a program that wants our graduates to come out beginning their recovery with the tools that they need to be a worthy mother, competent mother, to be a productive citizen, be able to get an apartment or a house, get a job, get their driver's license, and to change their life. And so if it takes 4 months, if it takes 18 months, most of our graduates take 12 to 18 months with us. And when they're done with the program, we continue to follow them. We survey them frequently, and it's a life-changing event for them. And so we're invested with them, and they in us.
You have an executive director, as I understand it. Tell us about her and what her role is.
Debbie Kinsey is our executive director. She's been with us since day one. I have these ideas, and she takes those ideas and makes them a reality. She's boots on the ground. I'm at the 30,000-foot level most of the time, but she's responsible for the success of this program, in my opinion. She's there with these women. We do provide housing, and our housing is where our office is, or where our office is. So she's with these women all the time. She, for instance, invites them to her house for a Christmas celebration, Thanksgiving. She gets them to church if they want to go. And so she's invested, and the payoff is seen with the changes in these women. If you check out our website, tideswilmington.org, there's some testimony and some pictures that you'll see that these women who are probably unrecognizable from the previous life they were living, physically and mentally, but there are a lot of smiles and there are a lot of babies, and that's what keeps us going.
Can you give us an example of anyone in particular, just without naming names, just a story?
Sure. I guess the one that kind of stands out in my mind is the first patient that I actually dealt with personally. The Tides was an idea. I knew where I wanted it to go, but unfortunately didn't have funding, and we were not up and running officially yet. But she had been on the street in Wilmington for over a decade, supporting her habit of about 30 bags of heroin a day. And I met her in the hospital where she was suffering from bacterial endocarditis, which comes from using dirty needles. So she was there, frail, could barely understand her. She was so short of breath. I told her what I had to offer, and to let the nurses know if she wanted me to provide her with the care, the medication that is probably about the backbone of our treatment program. And a couple of days later, I got the call that she wanted to talk to me again. And to today, she is a thriving community member. She sits on our board as an ex officio member. She's married, bought a house, has 2 jobs, very open to discussing her history with addiction. In fact, she's a social media star on Facebook and Instagram. Has done about 30 international and national interventions with the advent of virtual meetings. And she's just a rock star, in my opinion. She's celebrating her 4th year of sobriety on April 7th.
Very good. How has your perspective on the needs and histories of these women evolved?
I'm embarrassed to say that I really didn't care for these patients before I educated myself with the help of a licensed clinical social worker that had been in addiction treatment counseling for 35 years. He told me that my approach to what I wanted to do was not correct, and he led me with some studies and discussions and readings, and so I became aware of the science of addiction. A lot of us don't understand that it's a chronic disease, much like diabetes or hypertension, and it needs treatment forever. It's not like you can take a medication for 30 days and it's over. Comparing a chronic disease to addiction, there's so many similarities to it, and I didn't see it that way. And I had disdain for these women when they would come to our resident clinic with, a pregnancy and a positive urine drug screen that led up for all sorts of illicit substances. But I realized that still within that person, if you took the time to peel back the layers of the onion, it's the only way I know how to describe it. And sometimes you have to peel those layers back to the center to get to that heart and that soul of the human that's still in there. Now, that's a process, and sometimes it takes a long time. But if you take the time to do that and show them that they can trust you, that you're there to help them, and that you're only going to be honest with them, they have to be honest with me, that if you take the time to peel back that layer, that soul is still there. We try to keep these women healthy enough to get them on their road to recovery, to where they can be evaluated by DSS and found to be competent, worthy mothers. We don't make the decision to keep the mother-baby dyad together, but we work with the woman to get her to the point where she can stand on her own 2 feet and be a competent, worthy mother.
What you've just described in terms of the evolution of your perspective on these women and evaluation by DSS and such, we're talking about discernment of one kind or another. Let me use that as a segue to this next song that you've selected, Lion Eyes. Why that song?
Well, to me, it's unfortunately, I have a curse that I can pretty much size up someone that I meet pretty quickly, and the way that I can do that are the eyes.
Looking into their eyes.
Yeah, the eyes are the window to your soul. And, if you just sit back and look at people's facial expressions, the smiles, the twitches, the tics, but the eyes are always moving. The brows go up, tears come out of them. You need to watch the eyes, at least for me. And I need to look into these women's eyes to really get a sense of where they want to go and how they want to get there. And it's a curse and it's a gift, because the gift allows me to see where they want to go, where they are in their life, how they want to get there, and we just help them out. And so the Eagles, everybody loves the Eagles. They've been around for a long time. I miss Glenn Fry, by the way. Lion Eye.
Skip, we've been talking about tides and connecting it closely with your work and the founding of the organization in Wilmington, but you've been approached by and have talked with others who are interested in seeing the program or a program like it elsewhere. Tell us about Moore County.
Discussion began with them, first with Sheriff Ronnie Fields, who had learned about tides in Wilmington, and then Robert Whitman, who's the former health director for the county. And we began some early discussions about bringing the tides to Moore County. And so due to some family circumstances, it looked like I was going to be working full-time in Moore County, leaving Wilmington, where I was the GYN division chief in the residency program at New Hanover Regional Medical Center. And so there have been a lot of discussions with First Health, who is very supportive. They're one of our partners in our hub and spoke diagram of organizational structure. And I've been busy since November plugging in our partners who will be the spokes of the hub and spoke diagram of the organizational structure. And so we're working on funding now and working on housing for the women that will be taken care of. But I anticipate Tides Sandhills to be up and running, if not by the end of this year, in its early stages or early part of 2023, given some sources of funding coming through. So, again, it's exceeded my goals and expectations for this organization. But when people start to recognize what you're doing and the outcomes and the successes that we've been fortunate enough to be a part of, it makes us proud and makes us, because when other people see what you're doing and understand what you're doing and recognize the value and the worth, it really means a lot. It means a lot to the organization. It means a lot to the women that have completed our program and are now in the community doing what they need to be doing.
You recently passed a board certification that takes you beyond OBGYN, as I understand it.
That's correct. Due to my work with the Tides, I was deemed appropriate to sit for the addiction medicine boards. Normally, when medical students and residents are coming through their training, they'll do a fellowship in addiction medicine as a fellow, and then take their board certification exam. And because of the work I had done with the Tides, that gave me enough credibility to be able to sit for the exam. And about a month ago, learned that I'd passed the exam. You can teach an old dog new tricks. And so I think that gives credibility to the organization, as opposed to having a pelvic floor surgeon, OBGYN, running a recovery for opioid use disorder now. I'm qualified to take care of all addictions, and I think it gives us more credibility.
Very good. Well, Skip, it occurs to me that you obviously are doing great things with respect to these needs of pregnant women, but most of us don't have medical degrees. What would you say to those who want to make a difference without a medical degree?
My way of looking at life is that we're all put on earth for a purpose with different talents. We're all different. We all have different makeup. We all have different talents. We're a copy of one, but we're put on this earth with a mission. Some of us don't recognize that mission, like me, for a long time, until you've been slapped in the face enough to say, hey, this is your mission. And once you take those talents and start to work on your mission that you've been put on this earth to accomplish, then you have purpose. And when you have a purpose, you remember the book, The Purpose-Driven Life. A purpose makes you fulfilled. And so I would suggest that to recognize and achieve your mission that you've been put on this earth to do. It does not require a medical degree. It requires your heart and your soul. And just be open to ideas that pop into your head, because you're not going to hear from God knocking on your door and speaking to you through the door or over the telephone, over your iPhone. It's going to be an idea that comes into your head or a thought that comes into your head, and just respond to it. You can contribute to a nonprofit, because nonprofits heavily rely on donations, and that money goes to a mission, and you can be a part of that mission.
Yeah, it occurred to me while you were talking, I guess needless to say, that organizations like yours and many others don't function without the support of a lot of other people. Supportive roles may well be the roles, may well be the missions for a great many people.
Exactly. Volunteers, your pocketbook, time, cleaning out your attic. You know, we furnish our living facilities from secondhand furniture coming out of people's attics, or they're getting a new bedroom suite. We can make good use of what they're getting rid of. So as long as you're contributing your time, your effort, your thoughts, and your prayers, the prayers are huge. Prayers have what got us the Tides where we are today. That makes you a part of that mission. And so everybody has a mission. When you realize it and you feel it, and then that purpose and that belonging brings a peace and satisfaction and fulfillment to your life.
And I gather your wife has been one of those supporters in a big way. Married 40-some years?
41 years.
Uh-huh.
Dated for 7 prior to that.
So you go back a long time.
Long time.
And her name is?
Melissa. We were married before I went to medical school.
Uh-huh.
So she's always supported me, stood beside me and behind me the whole way without fail.
I didn't ask you, but what about this last song?
Well, it's
what's the name of it?
It's
Skip?
Melissa. It's Melissa. Period. The Allman Brothers, I love them. A good Southern rock and roll blues band. That this song was something that Greg put together many years ago. It took him a while to write it, and one night in a grocery store, he heard the name, and that was the name he put in the blanks that he had not filled in the lyrics of the song. And it's just it's a easy sounding piece of music. Dickie Betts plays his red guitar in it, and it says a lot to me about my wife.
Very good. Well, Skip, it's been a privilege to talk with you. Thank you for coming in and sharing about Tides.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just remind everyone you can Google tideswilmington.org and get more information about what we've been doing.
Thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's hear it. Melissa by the Allman Brothers. And this is for Melissa Johnstone.
Crossroads seem to come and go. Thank you.